dangers outlined in your novel of an EMP attack?
All right. When I first started thinking about writing the book, you kind of start framing the story like a Clancy story, not to put Clancy down. We're going to have the Jack Ryan character, we're going to have some guy in New York, another guy in wherever in Tehran, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And after a while, I was sitting at a college graduation for the school I teach at, and I was looking at the audience, and it was hot, I was tired, and something struck me. The book's about us. It's about my town, it's about my daughter. So I focused the story in on what happens to a typical small American family in a small American village across a span of 1 year. And it turns into a nightmare rather quickly.
Right, and can you just briefly describe for our audience the dangers of an EMP attack? What are some of the consequences?
Okay, an EMP, shorthand again for electromagnetic pulse weapons. It's a byproduct of a nuclear detonation above the Earth's atmosphere, but also, please let me add, it can also be triggered by a major solar storm, which we're long overdue statistically for one. When the gamma rays from a nuclear burst or the outburst of particles from a solar storm hits the upper atmosphere of the Earth, it sets up an electrostatic discharge, cascades down. Remember, the Earth is like a giant magnet, so it sucks down onto the Earth's surface at the speed of light, hits our power infrastructure, short circuits out all the microcircuitry that runs it. Also believed to short out almost all automobiles made after about 1985, 1990. Everything shuts off. And unlike a regional event like Katrina, where aid comes rushing in from North Carolina, Chicago, whatever, we're talking about a nationwide event. So it'd be weeks, months before help would come from overseas.
And what can the government do now, in your opinion, to prevent this disaster?
The government can do a lot right at this very moment. There is talk up on Capitol Hill of restoring funding. To me, there's several things. One, restoring funding to ballistic missile defense. We got to get out of thinking like the Cold War, where ballistic missile defense was scoffed and put down because, guys, it's impossible to stop 10,000 Soviet warheads from hitting us. We're now in a world where 3 small nuclear warheads could do serious damage. Missile defense. 2, preparedness. And not just for a military situation, but also a solar event. A solar event can do the same damage, in fact, globally. So we need to harden our infrastructure. 3, Katrina taught us, don't wait for other people to come and help you. I urge every family, and I'm not talking all this survivalist stuff, I'm just simply saying you should have an emergency plan in place. Power goes off, where do we all meet? To have a couple of weeks of food stored away safely. Even in a small apartment, you can do that. Simple things could perhaps save your life.
Right. During your talk, you cited the congressional study EMP report from 2004
yes.
that indicates a 90% American death rate. Considering this threat, you would think that you would be getting a lot more media attention, that this subject would be getting a lot more media attention. Why do you think that this hasn't received the publicity that it deserves?
That's a great question, thank you. I've pondered it, I've wondered about that as well, so have a lot of people. I think what we look at is, it's almost in our instinct that when a problem starts to look too overwhelming, we turn it off. That's why I mentioned during the conference about people who smoke cigarettes. We don't want to think about where it could put us in 5 or 10 years, so we just snap it out of our mind, out of sight, out of mind. I believe that is the problem with EMP. There's twofold problem. One, Hollywood turns it into sci-fi. Don't believe anything you see in Hollywood movies about EMP. They always get it wrong. 2, the problem seems so overwhelming, it's like, well, we can't do anything about it. Which was a problem, a serious problem during the Cold War. What do you do if the Soviets launched 10,000 nuclear warheads at us? You can't stop it. So let's not think about it. Well, that period, there is still that threat there, but the far more clear and present danger is EMP. Let's not blank it out. Let's do something about it.